Hello and welcome. This is Susan Lopresti. I am so excited to have you here with me today. I'm very excited about today's topic because I'm talking about produce storage, and we want to stop throwing our money away. Food is so expensive today, and we can really maintain our fruits and our veggies to have a longer shelf life if we know how to store them properly. And there's really nothing more annoying than getting to your fruits and your veggies one day too late when they're no longer edible. But you already know that because you decided to join this class and hear what it is that I have to say. But that happens so many times where you just don't have the opportunity to eat all of the fruits and veggies that you bought, and you end up throwing some away. We want to try to avoid that. And in the next couple of minutes, we're going to explore some tips and tricks that we can use to extend the shelf life of your produce. We're going to get started by talking about what you should store at room temperature. And I think that this is a great question, right? So which fruits and veggies should be sitting on your counter or in a fruit bowl, and which should be going into a refrigerator? The ones that should be sitting on your counter or a fruit bowl should be the ones that are very sensitive to cold and actually stay fresher when they're stored at room temperature. And these include, and I'll read them off slowly, so maybe you could jot them down real quickly: bananas, basil, cucumber, eggplant, garlic, grapefruits, green beans, lemons, limes, onions, oranges, sweet potatoes, white potatoes, summer squash, watermelon, winter squash, and zucchini. If you've been storing these fruits and veggies in the refrigerator, they're taking up valuable refrigerator space, so keep them on the counter instead. And also, when you store your produce in plain sight, you're more likely to remember to eat it. So if it's out on the counter and not buried in your refrigerator somewhere, you are more likely to pick up that fruit and eat it. What produce are we storing in the refrigerator? These types of produce actually prefer chillier temperatures, and they will stay fresher for longer if they're in the fridge. So apples, asparagus, blueberries, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, cherries, cilantro, corn, dark leafy greens all do well in the refrigerator. Grapes, leeks, lettuce, parsley, peas, pomegranates, raspberries, strawberries, they all do well in the refrigerator. And some fruits and veggies like to travel. So what do I mean by that? And they're temperamental, and they prefer to be stored on the counter until they get ripe, and then we're to move them to the refrigerator to stay ripe. And the temperamental ones include apricots, avocados, kiwi, mangoes, melons, all melons, nectarines, papaya, peaches, pears, pineapples, and also plums. Those are the ones that like to travel. They start out on the counter, get ripe, and then go in the refrigerator. And then these fruits and veggies, they prefer plenty of personal space. Determining whether to store your produce in or out of the refrigerator is only half the battle. The other part of the battle is what fruits and veggies like to be stored together and which ones you should separate. And so we're going to look at that. As a rule of thumb, keep apples, avocados, stone fruits, pears, bananas, and tomatoes away from other fruits and veggies, especially leafy greens. The ethylene gas that these fruits and veggies release can speed up the ripening process into hyperdrive. Gas producers include apricots, apples, avocados, bananas that are unripe, cantaloupe, figs, honeydew, kiwi, nectarines, peaches, plums, tomatoes. Then we have gas sensitive fruits and veggies, and those include bananas that are ripe, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, cucumbers, eggplants, lettuce, peas, peppers, squash, sweet potatoes, and watermelon. I keep them all separate from one another so that I don't have to keep second guessing. And then what about when you're looking to ripen fruit more quickly? And I know this happens a lot, especially with avocados. Like you can place in a paper bag your avocado with a ripe banana. And you could do the same with stone fruits. Like if you have peaches and plums and apricots, if you put them in a brown paper bag with the ripe banana, they will also ripen quicker. And then we need to know about how ethylene works. Ethylene is a plant hormone that's often thought of as an aging hormone for plants of all kinds. And then we want to think about onions and the way we should store them. They should be kept in a dry, dark space, but separate from their other counterparts that also like a dry, dark space. So you want to keep them away from sweet potatoes and winter squash, which consist of acorn, butternut, and pumpkin. Also, sweet potatoes and watermelons. Why? Because they like to share their scent, and no one wants to taste a watermelon that has a hint of an onion flavor to it. Onions that are nestled up against potatoes will cause them to wilt and sprout more quickly than they would if onions weren't present. So you want to keep your onions away from potatoes. And then we want to look at a cousin of onion, and that is scallions and how we store scallions. So scallions or green onions can go slimy or dry out pretty quickly if you store them incorrectly. The next time you bring a bunch home from the store, place them in a tall glass or jar and fill the container with about 2 inches of water. And then you want to place a Ziploc bag on top of the whole thing and stick it in the refrigerator. When you use a scallion, don't throw away the white root on the bottom. Instead, place it in another jar with some water and let it sit in the sunlight. Within a day or two, it will start resprouting, and then you're going to get a whole bunch of scallions for free. So there's a way to save some money. Let's look at sliced fruits. We want to eat sliced fruits quickly. Once you slice them, they don't last as long as they do when they're whole. So fruits like apples and pears and bananas and avocados shouldn't be sliced ahead of time if you could help it, since they're going to brown very quickly. But if you must prep ahead of time, you can slice your apples ahead of time and submerge them in cold water along with some lemon or lime juice, and that will help them from turning brown. What happens with an avocado is it contains enzymes that create a brown pigment when they're exposed to oxygen, which is why guacamole looks so unappetizing the day after you make it. So to avoid sliced avocado from going brown, squirt it with a little lemon or lime juice. The citric acid will buy you at least another day of it staying green. And you could also store sliced avocados in a container with a large piece of onion, because the gases that make your eyes burn and tear when you chop an onion, It's those bad boys that will also help to prevent oxidation in your avocado. Another option to prevent browning is to keep the pit in it. So if you have a half of an avocado that you want to store, keep the pit, leave it right there, and store it. Or another alternative is to mash up your avocado, place it in a bowl or a container, and then cover it with a layer of water. And this layer protects the avocado from oxygen. And because the avocado is dense, it won't soak up the water. And when you're ready to eat the avocado, just pour that water out and mix it all up again, and you're done. And that's a great way to preserve a half of an avocado as well. Leafy greens are tricky and they wilt really quickly. So the most important thing to keep in mind with leafy greens is that you want to keep them dry as best as possible. And the best method for washing and storing your leafy greens is to separate your leaves from the head and soak them in cold water for about 5 minutes. And then you want to gently swirl the leaves in the water and transfer the leaves into either a salad spinner, or if you don't have a salad spinner, you could place them on a dry dish towel and wait until they're fully dry before you store them. Once your greens are rinsed and fully dried, line a container with paper towels and place them inside. The hard container will help to protect the leaves from getting crushed, and the paper towel will absorb the extra moisture. And then one of my favorites, give berries the royal treatment. They deserve the royal treatment in my eyes. They're delicate and they hate to be wet. And I found that the best way to handle them is to place them in a large bowl with cold water and add a few tablespoons of white vinegar. Don't worry, you're not going to taste it. Gently let the berries go for a swim in this liquid and then transfer them to a paper-lined plate to dry. And then after they dry, you want to keep them in a strainer or a microwave steamer or any storage vessel that allows air to filter through, including the package that it came in, because usually it comes in a package where there's already holes, so you could restore them right in there. Don't put them in a sealed container. That's trapped moisture and they will wilt a lot faster. And then what produce do we want to keep in the pantry? So you want to never ever refrigerate potatoes, onions, squash, or garlic. The cold temperature will change the texture and the flavor of your foods. With potatoes, the cold temperature will turn the starch into sugar more quickly, and it will also leave you with a grittier, sweeter potato than you probably want. While you're at it, know that storing tomatoes in the fridge can also change the texture and cause them to lose flavor. So opt to keep them on the counter instead. And then use your veggie crisper that's in the refrigerator if you're lucky enough to have one. Your crisp drawers in your refrigerator have different levels of humidity than the rest of your refrigerator, and you can help to optimize freshness. While these drawers may seem like the perfect place to store odds and ends, or maybe put like a 6-pack of beer or something, utilizing them for produce can keep your fruits and veggies fresher for much longer. In some refrigerators, you may be able to adjust the humidity setting for each drawer. If this is the case for you, you'll want to store thin, skinnier, or leafy vegetables like asparagus and fresh herbs and greens that are prone to wilting or losing moisture in a high humidity drawer. High ethylene producing fruits should be stored in low humidity drawers because the open vent will allow the ethylene gases to escape. If you don't have humidity controls, still try and separate your produce by ethylene production. Is your produce about to go bad? Are your strawberries looking a little sad like these are? Do your mangoes need to be eaten ASAP? Are the bananas on the verge of turning completely brown? Instead of forcing yourself to eat all these foods really quickly or to throw them away, you can chop them up and you can freeze them. And you can use this method if you buy in bulk. And I know that, especially if you buy in bulk, you're not able to eat everything all at once. I'm going to leave a link in the show notes of different ways that you can freeze your fruits and veggies. They give you a lot of information about that. So I'll leave the link and you can go check that out on your own time. And then what about herbs, right? Let's look at herbs. And what do we do here? With the exception of basil, fresh herbs like to be stored in the fridge with a damp but not soaking wet paper towel to keep them fresh. And if you wish, you can store them also in the mini bouquet by trimming an inch or so off the stem and placing them in a glass jar of water. And then you want to cover them loosely with plastic or maybe a baggie and stick them in the refrigerator. And you want to do the same for basil, but keep basil on your counter. It prefers to stay warm and also has a tendency to pick up other smells of things around it. So basil is best on your counter, but also in water. And then what about celery? Celery can be tricky at times, and you can keep your celery happy and from getting rubbery by wrapping it in aluminum foil. Unlike the plastic bag that it usually comes in, the foil will let the ethylene escape and keep your celery crisp. That's a great tool to know. And then for celery that has already gotten rubbery, you can place the celery in a glass container of water and it will crisp up again. Grab your paper towels, folks, right? If you're planning on letting leafy produce sit for a couple of days, you can delay washing it and you can keep it whole. Just wrap it like a burrito in a few sheets of paper towel and put it in a plastic bag, but leave the top open. Don't seal it. This technique should leave your leaves crisp up for several weeks. Bagged veggies like green beans, snap peas, and snow peas can benefit from the same treatment. Wrap them in a paper towel and put them in something that's plastic, but leave the bag open. Let's look at mushrooms. Mushrooms, a common mistake that I see all the time is storing mushrooms in plastic. The plastic traps the moisture and causes the mushroom to get moldy and also slimy. I mean, they are a fungi after all, right? So the next time that you bring mushrooms home, take them out of the plastic and put them in an open paper bag or line a bowl with paper towel and place it in the fridge. Mushrooms need that extra air circulation. So keep that in mind. Do not put them in plastic. And then water lovers. Water lovers like carrots and asparagus, they both tend to dry out rather quickly, so they could do with a little extra moisture. If you buy carrots with the leaves still attached, cut them off as the leaves pull the nutrients from the main root. And then next, put them in a container filled with water, seal it with plastic wrap, and store it in your fridge. Asparagus like to stay hydrated too, so store the stalks as you would the flowers upright with the cut ends submerged in the bowl, and also place those in the fridge. That's the end of this presentation. I hope that it added a lot of value and provided you with information so that you could store your veggies and have them have a longer shelf life. We want to do whatever we can to store our fresh produce where we get the most value from it and the nutrients remain strong. So again, thank you so much for joining this presentation. Please be sure to follow me. go to my website, www.susanlopresti.com. You can sign up for a free 30-minute health coaching session with me. You can also get a link from my website directly to my blog, where you could find so much great information on ways that we could stay healthy and proactive in our healing, and also a link that will take you directly to my podcast as well. So again, thank you so much. I so appreciate all of you. Until the next time, be well, stay happy, and bye for now.